So I hope that you did really great on your review today, because you do have a big quiz tomorrow on cell structures. And before we move on to the quiz, we're actually going to set up a lab for the next section that we're going to learn about. So this is on page A25. So if everybody can turn to page A25, I want to go over how to set up the lab for you. Now this lab is going to be using potatoes as a model for what's called osmosis. Osmosis is a type of transport. And we know that transport means to move. Well, osmosis is specifically the transport of water. So we're going to be looking at how water moves in and out of potato cells. Potatoes are really interesting because they're a modification not of roots, like most people think, actually of the stem. And it's the place where the potato plant stores starch. Remember, starch is an important source of energy for plants. And so they store this underground because they actually don't want animals to eat it. They're trying to hide it for animals and save it for themselves. And so when they store it underground, it's actually going to be exposed to a lot more water. And so is this potato full of water? Well, there is some water in it. When you cut it open today, you'll see that. And so what we want to do first is we want to explore. The potato is made of cells that what? How would you describe potato cells? So don't write describe here. Actually do it. But remember, potatoes are plants. And so you can describe a plant cell. And here are two hypotheses that I want you to answer. Notice they start with if. If a piece of potato is placed in pure water, then what do you think will happen? And if a piece of potato is placed in salt water, then what do you think will happen? We're going to see, is there any difference between putting a piece of potato in pure or 100% water and putting a piece of potato into salt water? And so that's what you're actually going to do. And so what I want to do is there are a few edits that we need to make to this page. I have made some mistakes. What we're going to do is be placing potato in pure water and salt water. And so we're going to go ahead and draw a little diagram of this. Here's our 100% water. And here will be our piece of potato. Down here is going to be salt water. And we're also going to put a piece of potato in there. Now, if we want to truly collect data, we need some measurements. And so we're going to look at weight, length, and texture. So how much does the piece of potato weigh? How long is it? And what does the piece of potato feel like? But you'll notice that here I made some mistakes. This should say final. Final length. And this should say change in length. Little copy-paste error there. So what you're doing today, put a star up here. What you're doing today is taking the initial weight, the initial length, and the initial texture. And you have lab directions to help you do that. You have to do that for the potato that goes in the pure water and the potato that goes in the salt water. So we need to make these changes here too. This is final length and change in length. So today you're taking the initial weight, initial length, and initial texture of your piece of potato. But it turns out that the potato skin cells are actually going to block any water from moving in or out. So we need pieces of potato without the skin cells on them. And so Mr. Majansky, or one of my AP students, is going to help you with this. And you're going to put a piece of potato here in the cutter. Not you, Mr. Majansky, or one of the AP students. And you're going to slice it. The only problem is these slices still have pieces of skin on the end. So Mr. Majansky or one of the AP students is going to use the scalpel to help you cut the piece of potato slices into smaller pieces. We don't want a whole huge long French fry type because that's not going to fit inside of our cup. So we need two pieces that are about equal length, and one is going to go in a cup that is already labeled for you salt, and a cup that is already labeled distilled. And then you'll find that there's going to be a container of salt water and a container of distilled water. And you're going to fill it up to the little line that you see here. Should be a line on each cup. And then the directions tell you to place a piece of paper over to prevent anything from falling in there. Now make sure that before you put it in the cup, you've actually weighed it on the scale. And that if this is the value that I'm putting for the potato in pure water, that's what I put into the distilled water cup. You want to weigh it before you put it in the cup so that you know how much just the piece of potato weighs. You also want to use a ruler to help you measure how long the piece of potato is in centimeters. Remember, centimeters are the sets of more numbers on this side. And so you're going to be recording the weight, length, and texture. Texture you're going to see on your lab direction means, is it bendy or is it pretty stiff? And so once you get those set up, you do want to push them up against the wall. And then you are going to use any time that you have left to study for your quiz tomorrow.